Hi everybody, my name is Sydney Hamilton, and today I will be presenting to you a policy brief that I worked on in Capstone II with my classmates listed here. Our policy brief is entitled, One Step in the Reduction of Domestic Violence Recidivism. The Arizona Coalition to End Sexual and Domestic Violence states that one person every 3 days will die from a domestic violence incident. The coalition tracks over 100 domestic-related deaths annually in the state of Arizona. The law ARS 13-3601 states that an offender of domestic violence does not need to attend any rehabilitation courses. Across the state, a pilot program to correct this problem is being recommended for Maricopa County. So some critiques of the current solutions that research has shown to be ineffective. The first one is just an arrest is not effective to stop an offender from reoffending. Prosecution of offenders in domestic violence cases will reduce recidivism of the crime. This should be paired with other factors as well, such as rehabilitation programs. Lastly, offenders do not see an active order of protection as a valid measure and will oftentimes reoffend regardless of whether such an order is in place. So for our audience, we directed it towards Rebecca Rios of Arizona State Legislature's District 27 because we believe that she can help make a difference in Arizona in the field of domestic violence recidivism reduction. So we're proposing changes in law and policy for Arizona and would like the trial program to be within the county of Maricopa, which Ms. Rios' district falls in. These changes will not only help the citizens of Maricopa County, but they can also help Ms. Rios' career. Showing that she cares about a cause like domestic violence will show that she cares about the victims in her district, the state of Arizona, and showing that she can be tough on crime. We're recommending several new laws that we are hoping Ms. Rios can help us pass. The first one is mandatory rehabilitation for offenders upon conviction, while incarcerated, and upon release. This will not only allow the victims of domestic violence to formulate a plan to either heal the relationship or leave the relationship, but it will also show that Arizona wants to be tough on domestic violence while still caring about the offender and his or her chance at rehabilitation. The reason we need to continue rehabilitation courses upon release is that the offender will need additional help repairing his or her relationship and not falling into old habits if he or she starts a new relationship. While Arizona already has specialized laws for domestic violence on the books, we want to tighten up the language so that we can direct offenders into the proper court system. With that in mind, we're recommending a new policy for the Maricopa County court system. All crimes that involve a domestic nature would go through a domestic court branch. For the program itself, we will work with convicted offenders of domestic violence to curb the triggers that led to their conviction. Our program will center on two key aspects, including anger management and substance abuse control. We will need the help of a few more people than just my team and Ms. Rios to accomplish this goal. The first person we will need assistance from is Sheriff Paul Pinzone. We've already started discussions with his office, and Sheriff Pinzone will need to set aside space allocated for our rehabilitation program that is conducive to a learning environment. The Sheriff's Office will also need to conduct background checks for the counselors for the rehabilitation program. This is necessary because they will be teaching within the correctional facility, so it truly is a safety issue. Next, having the mayors within Maricopa County on board with the rehabilitation program will help lend support when drafting the laws and policy necessary for enacting the program. We need to keep in mind that their constituents, along with Ms. Rios's, will be affected. The local and county judges within Maricopa County will be affected by the changes as well. They will be placed in specialized courts centering around the domestic violence cases, which will allow them to focus and concentrate on learning and refining sentencing concerning these types of laws. Lastly, with any new laws and policy regarding an issue like domestic violence, which hits very close to home, it is important to keep in mind that the general public will be affected as well. So now that we have gone over the background of the problem and the problems within the current systems in place, what can our lawmakers do to help our community? We know from our research that simply going to jail does not prevent domestic violence offenders from offending again once they are out of jail. The first solution is to require offenders to register for a domestic violence and anger management counseling program within 60 days of leaving jail. If the offender does not enroll within the 60-day period, it will be considered a parole violation. Domestic violence cases should be given their own branch in court so that judges can handle the cases more effectively and with special resources. This will also make it easier to ensure that no offenders slip through the cracks, so to speak, when it comes to their mandatory rehabilitation programs. Along with specialized courts, there will be domestic violence specific classifications and codes that the court system will use to ensure that the offenders are prosecuted effectively. In cases where a couple stays together after a domestic violence altercation, the offender's rehabilitation will be more successful if his or her partner participates in the rehabilitation. With this in mind, the partner will be allowed to participate in several, but not all of, the rehabilitation sessions while the offender is incarcerated. He or she will be allowed and encouraged to attend all classes upon release. For safety reasons, there may not be a chance for partners to be involved in all of the classes while the offender is incarcerated. These 4 solutions have proven to reduce domestic violence offenders from reoffending in other counties, and we're confident that this compilation of research will reduce recidivism rates in Maricopa County. So in conclusion, domestic violence offenders have not been dealt with in a way that reduces recidivism rates. There has been a lack in convictions, accountability, and rehabilitation, which has caused the recidivism rates for these offenders to increase. Our solutions reflect the seriousness of domestic violence and the importance of abusers taking full accountability for their crimes. Our policy brief also provides domestic violence abusers opportunities to change their behavior by way of mandatory rehabilitation programs and counseling. The policy brief provides the opportunity for stakeholders to crack down on domestic violence cases, for abusers to be properly reprimanded, and for victims to feel as if justice has been served for their abusers. So here are some questions for you to consider when engaging with the material in this policy brief. What particular elements do you believe should be included in rehabilitation programs to prevent a domestic violence offender from offending again? And how can we prevent people from becoming abusers in the first place? Lastly, we've listed our references if anyone wishes to explore this material further. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your week.